Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have a real opportunity to learn from someone in a very unique business, Mr. Zach Fuller. Zach is the managing partner and head of business operations and strategy at Silent Sector. They're a cybersecurity consulting firm serving mid-market organizations across technology, financial services, as well as healthcare. That's a lot, Zach. So I'd like to hear your story as how did this all get started and how did you get involved in this company that you're currently the head of? Tell me about your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So the start was, I guess I could trace it all the way back to when I was a kid. You know, as a kid,
Okay.
growing up, we moved to Arizona when I was pretty young. And when it's 115 outside, you tend to spend a lot of time inside in the summer. So I spent a lot of time on computers, and
Okay.
that turned into hacking the networks in computer class at school and locking the teachers out of their own systems and all kinds of various things, right? I was just curious, it was just wanted to understand how these things worked. And back then it was just a slap on the wrist. Of course, it wasn't like today where,
Correct.
could go to jail for that. So long story short, that from there, I kind of pivoted into the entrepreneurial world. I found out that I could use some computer skills to build websites and such for companies back when that was a brand new thing and you were cutting edge. You had a website at the time. I learned about outsourcing to Russia back before outsourcing was even talked about. But through the internet, all kinds of things were possible. So that kind of kicked off my tech interest. I later went on, spent 2 years at University of Colorado, then went on to the Army. And after my enlistment in the Army, I got out. I wasn't going to go back into website design because everybody was doing that. I
Right.
actually went to real estate of all things. So
Wow.
the real estate private equity world it's eventually what we pivoted into, but did that for a number of years. Had a lot of fun, learned a ton doing it. But back in about 2015, 2016 timeframe, I started feeling called to go into cybersecurity. I was seeing all the stuff going on in the news, right? More and more talks of cyber attacks ramping up and everything like that. And I thought, well, this is interesting. This might be a way where I can add value in a way I can kind of do similar to what I did in the special operations community. Granted, a lot less physical type engagement, but I could protect good people from the bad guys, right? I could protect good people in the organizations they serve if I went into cybersecurity. So I felt this calling to go into that world, and ultimately Silent Sector was started in 2016. We've grown the firm steadily, and we just have our absolute rock star team. It's just a blessing to work with them. And what we do as a firm is, first and foremost, our mission is to protect the backbone of the American economy and our way of life. And so for us, that's in cybersecurity. And what we do is build formal cyber risk management programs for companies. So just like an organization would have its marketing programs, its production, operations programs, right? Sales programs, accounting programs, all these things. The same is necessary for cybersecurity so that we use all these IT assets in a secure and compliant way. So we build these cybersecurity programs with that comes a lot of compliance work as well. A lot of the industries that we work with are very heavily compliance regulated. So they have to build, put in specific controls in order to protect certain types of data and certain systems. And then on top of that, we also do a lot of testing, what we call penetration testing, or you also hear it referred to as white hat hacking, where we're using the same types of tools and technologies and techniques that cyber criminals will use. We're using those things on our customers' systems so that they can see what the cyber criminals will see, hopefully before the criminals see it. So we can help them identify the risks, shore up any of those vulnerabilities that are exploitable that could cause them harm, and just continue to improve their security posture over time. So we love doing it. It's a fascinating business to be in, and unfortunately, it has to exist But that's the nature of the world we live in today.
It's going to be more complex and even worse, I think, as we go forward. And so I'm thank God there's someone like you trying to put this into play, because you just read in the news the other day what happened in Minnesota and what happened in Michigan and their water systems being hacked potentially, and then who was behind it. And we don't want to get into all that in this discussion, but I mean, that's a problem that's going to exist and continue for the rest of our, probably as long as we're around and computers and technology are around. And then you add AI into the equation and all types of things come into play. So the problems you solve seem to be like kind of a protective shield, if possible, around a company's infrastructure to the best of the ability from a technology point of view. You test the capabilities of what you put into play, make sure it's ready for all types of potential attacks. Why is that important to you to solve that problem, Zach?
Well, a couple reasons. And, getting into this business, when I, planning and really doing a lot of research and trying to understand the cybersecurity industry, I thought that the people that we would work with would come to us because they know they need to do something about security. They see everything going on. They see the breaches. They're going to come to us because they naturally want to secure their organization. What I learned a few years after is that actually the reason they're coming to us is as a business enabler. So when we put these security programs and compliance programs in place, it allows these companies, a lot of mid-market type companies, to go after larger enterprise customers and government contracts. So they can, when they're doing the right thing from a security perspective and they know how to articulate it to their customers or their prospects, it allows them to play in bigger fields, to go after bigger opportunities. And ultimately, that's the basis of what we really do. So yes, we protect organizations across people, processes, and technologies, right? It's not just a technology factor. It's people and processes are equally important.
Okay.
But ultimately, what we're doing is we're helping them gain a competitive advantage in their marketplace, stand out as a more trustworthy, more secure option, which enterprise customers will actually pay more for. You're more likely to win those contracts, and the same is true with government.
You think about it, so you're an added value piece to a company. If in fact they have to go to an RFP, now they have a tool they can justify why they should be the one who gets awarded a contract because of that. You have that capability. And for many of them, you're right, for financial institutions in particular, I do work with a lot of major banks, compliance is crucial. And you've got to be able to have that security baked in for that, for their customers in the banking industry. And as well, mostly financial institutions, you're going to have that. So what is your, if you were to target, Zach, what you guys do, what's your ICP, your ideal client profile?
Yeah, so we tend to focus on what I call mid-market and emerging companies, meaning not startups, not mom and pop type operations, but companies that are well established. They more often than not, they have an in-house IT department, but no cybersecurity team in-house. Maybe they have one person, an analyst or somebody running some tools and things like that, which is great because it's excellent. But often these organizations are not at the scale where they can spend millions a year on a fully staffed security team. So that's where we come in. We essentially can be an extension of their in-house capabilities, working hand in hand with their IT team. These tend to be compliance regulated industries, defense contractors, healthcare, financial services, some in the education and higher education space. All of those industries have to do something about cybersecurity. It's not optional for them, and they realize that. However, to do it all in house would be extremely cumbersome, and pretty much everybody we work with, I don't think I've ever seen an IT team that has plenty of extra time on their hands. They're all stressed. And so when that's the case, they appreciate the extra help and guidance. We can eliminate the guesswork, the trial and error, and really get them to their objectives much quicker while they're handling the core day-to-day operations in IT. So
So besides those particular industries, is there a sweet spot in a company size? You mentioned mid-market, emerging market, and the type of industries in particular, but you don't probably want to go after a Raytheon or a large defense contractor that's a conglomerate, it's huge, or Bechtel, but you might go after to somebody who's maybe 50 to 500 employees. What was there any type of revenue or company size target in your
Yeah,
ICP?
absolutely. And it really depends on the nature of the industry and the
Okay.
service that we're providing. So we do work from time to time with large enterprise, multi-billion dollar companies when it comes to security testing and assessments. They want a third
Okay.
party to come in and do that. So with those, we can serve the large organizations in that capacity. However, they
Okay.
generally have a full security team and all that good stuff. In the mid market and lower mid market space, they tend to be anywhere if they're a very tech heavy company, B2B software, for instance, they might only be 20 or 30 people. Or maybe it's a
Okay.
med company making a device and maybe it's 150 people or something like that, but they have a broad reach in their industry. So those are excellent. When we get into more brick and mortar type companies, healthcare operations, and that span across regions, things like that. Those will generally be anywhere from 500 up to about 4,000 or so
Okay.
employees total. So yeah, it's quite a range, but again, depends on the nature of the industry and what it is that they're doing and needing in terms of our support.
I love the white hat hack, the idea how you guys get in there and try and really test it. That's a really validation of the importance of what you're doing, but more importantly, the risks to people if they're not doing those tests and those evaluations to see, because then they're all vulnerable. So you guys are thinking a step ahead. I like that. So how do people find out about you guys? So there's different ways that people attract customers in today's world. We have business networking called LinkedIn. That's our social media kind of business. You've got referrals of satisfied clients you've worked with before, Zach, who come back or tell somebody, hey, you need to look at Zach and his group. And or you might go to conferences, whether there's cybersecurity conferences, and get exposed in that way and maybe speak at an engagement. And you also can do, as you mentioned, you have current podcasts you might have for educational purposes. Think about all the different ways you can get out there. Which ones are you using most effectively and are helping you get the most client attention?
Mhm. So 2/3 of our business has come from essentially some sort of human connection. That could
Okay.
be one to one or it could be one to many. So, for instance, we do a lot, and everything we do is rooted in education for the people that need the type of work that we do. So
Okay.
we're very much education and consultative in our sales and marketing efforts. So as a result, I end up doing a lot of public speaking at
Okay.
conferences, keynotes, and such, and sharing with both technical and non-technical audiences the importance of cybersecurity, how their roles play into it, all of that, and really doing so in a way that connects with them, not just on a here's what you need to do level, step one, step two, step three, but more of a how to think about it level, because
Okay.
that's all smart business people. I work very hard to craft messaging to transform how people think about this so they can better protect their organizations and make better decisions regardless of how they go about doing that. Now we do, as far as like the mechanical stuff, we do a lot of work on our website. In fact, we're about to have a new website launch here very soon, maybe this week.
Oh, great.
We do a lot of content development on that. That results in good search engine optimization and good AI search optimization. More and more, our clients are finding us on AI. They're looking for very specific answers to specific problems and challenges, and we come up as a result whenever we have the expertise in what they're looking for. Yeah, certainly referrals, word of mouth, all of that. That's been for a long time I think the best avenue. One of the things about our firm is that we won't work with everybody. We don't want to work with everybody. We very much value quality over quantity. And so we want to make sure we're working with the right clients. There's got to be a good culture fit. Their team has to be interested in actually pursuing this and not just, dragging their feet or out of obligation. We want to make sure that it's the best possible experience for the people we're serving and for our team members as well. So we tend to be selective, and as a result, the word of mouth and referrals is the very best in my mind. When people send us people when our clients send us people that are a lot like them, those relationships always go very, very well.
That's the highest quality you can get. When you get someone that knows what you do, is respectful of what you do, implements what you do, sees results, and they tell somebody else, here's why you need to work for Silent Sector. I think that's by far the best. And that's, again, the human connection. And today people are leery about a lot of digitized information they're getting, more suspect of, is it legit? Is it real? That human connection is irreplaceable. So I'm glad to hear you doing keynote speaking and other things like that. That makes a big difference. It's important, Zach. Keep it up. Now let's talk about what you run into on the hierarchy of your organizations you sell to. You've got stakeholders at different levels, and if they're going to bring you guys in, it may not just be one department. You're probably going to the C-suite as much as you can, and then hopefully that's where you make the decision, but it then goes down from that point for implementation. From point of contact of someone's interested to fruition of an agreement, what's your selling cycle like most often?
Yeah, so typically, and again, it depends on the size of the organization, but if we kind of take the average, a lot of times somebody on the IT team will be tasked with the process of finding a right vendor and a right approach for something. So in our case, it's building a security program. Maybe they need to go after a certification of some kind, like they have a customer telling them they need to be ISO 27001 certified. They haven't been through it before. They need some help. So they'll reach out to a few different companies and start having those conversations. We start with a readiness discussion, 25 minutes long. We go in and we want to really get to understand the essence of what their objectives are to make sure that our team and our services are going to be the best solution for them. And if not, that's perfectly fine. And we have lots of friends in the community. We can make connections for them and try to get on. Okay. Assuming they're a good fit, it sounds like a good, the company's got a good culture and they're going to be good people to work with. We will then go on to a scoping discussion. And this is really a solution design discussion. It's as much of a consultation as it is information collection for us. Very, very methodical process. But we will collect the information we need to be able to come back to them with a prescriptive route of how to get from where they are today to where they want to be, and in the most efficient and effective way. Not only that, but also in a sustainable way, right? We don't want to just get them compliant and then they lose it after the audit and they've got,
right.
We need to get them up and sustainable. So we come back to them with that and present our methodology, the approach forward that we recommend. And if it fits budget, timeline, all that good stuff, then great. We set off into a kickoff discussion and go from there. Get the teams introduced fully and start the process forward. So that's the overall cycle. And who we deal with throughout that really. Oftentimes, like I said, maybe it can start with somebody that's maybe mid or entry level. Not always. Sometimes the CIO reaches out directly to us and they'll say, hey, this is the issue. Ultimately, the final decision tends to fall in the hands of whoever the IT leader is, whatever that company has. So it might be a CIO, the title might be or IT director or VP of IT, but typically it falls on that person's hands. Most companies are still wrapping cybersecurity under the kind of the IT side of things. More sophisticated companies will have kind of a separate lane, and they might put it under like the CFO. If they don't have a chief risk officer or somebody like that, a lot of times that falls on the CFO lap. So every once in a while we'll work with them as well. But ideally, and whenever we can, we try to get connected with and have discussions with other people in the C-suite, because this is not just an IT issue. We're going to be talking about transforming a bit of culture for security awareness, how systems are used, how systems are taken care of, a hygiene behind all this stuff. So we do, it is as much of a people consideration as it is anything else. For that reason, I always am grateful when I can get the time of other executive leadership throughout the organization, because if they're bought in, the program is going to go really, really well.
Right.
Without support, not much is going to happen.
Yeah. Key C-suite stakeholders that are supportive give you the best chance for quality implementation. And I like the way you kind of split it out. What you shared earlier, though, it also could be a marketing department or a sales department who says, we need this tool to make sure we go out and get more business, and we can offer that. So it opens up areas beyond just IT, which I like that as well. Now let's talk about retention. Obviously, all people in business know I work hard to get a customer, to get them to use us. I want to maintain that relationship. What is your retention strategy with your key customers?
Yeah, and our retention is phenomenal. When we lose a customer, it's typically because their organization was acquired by a big conglomerate.
Okay.
Whose security team then comes in and takes over
Right.
the duties and responsibilities that we were working on with them. So the retention is great, and really that comes from a couple things. One is that being kind of an extension of their team, we are engaged with them in the cyclical ongoing activities that have to happen throughout the year, every year, in order to maintain security and compliance. As we know, it's not a one and done type project.
No.
It's always ongoing maintenance and always continuous areas for improvement. And that's the second piece, is that continuous improvement is one of our core values as a company, not only for the organizations we serve, but also for ourselves personally, professionally, and as a company. So we're always looking for the little bit better way to do things, and incremental improvements every single day. And so the team is phenomenal at that. They're always coming up with, innovative solutions and very elegant ways to tackle complex problems. Anybody can take something and complex and make it more complex, and that's common in the consultant world, and they'll spend lots of time to do it. I think our value, part of it is in taking the complex, making it simple, making it sustainable and repeatable, and the team is always finding better ways to do that. So yeah, once a company gets to understand and appreciate the level of service that we're providing, a lot of times they say, yeah, we don't want to bring this in-house. It would be cost prohibitive. It would,
Right.
it'd just be something else to manage. These guys have a system down, Silent Sector let's just run with their methodology because we know it works, and it'll sustain us, as we grow.
How do you go to those clients, and they've invested dollars and time in bringing you guys in, show them metrics that are quantifiable, that say, hey, here's your return, and here's why we've done our job effectively?
The number one way for an organization to show its progress is through a cyber risk assessment on at least an annual basis. So every
Okay.
organization that's doing security effectively aligns with a core cyber risk management framework. There's a bunch of them out there: the NIST cybersecurity framework, the ISO 27001, the Center for Internet Security Controls, all that. But these are all recognized industry best practices and standards, not
Okay.
created by us, but be created by these big governing bodies like NIST and ISO. So when we help the company understand what's the best framework and model for their organization, and then from there we basically go and measure against that. Starting out where
Okay.
they are today, we can say, hey, we are 62% aligned to NIST cybersecurity framework, version 2.0. And next year we want to show significant progress. Hey, this, now we are 76% aligned, and so on. Now,
Okay. So there are measurables.
absolutely. That's measuring whether or not those controls are in place and the maturity level of those controls. So, simple things you hear about all the time are like multi-factor authentication and hard passwords and recovery and all that. So there are a bunch of those. But if we follow those industry best practices, we can measure against them. And also, if something happens and a breach occurs and it ends up in court, as these things often do, we don't have to say, oh, we made this up as we go. We are actually showing that, hey, we're following what NIST says. We're following what ISO says. We might put our own icing on the cake, so to speak, but the core industry standards, we're going to have those down.
Okay. So let's talk about, as you look to the future and we look at the balance of this year heading into next year. I always used to talk about, hey, getting into 2030 with Claude and all the chat versions of AI. None of us can, I think, predict what's going to happen in 2028 if we even think we could. But let's talk about the immediate future for you guys. Where are the biggest challenges for the growth of silent sector?
Yeah, our biggest challenge is really getting found in a noisy market. There's I don't know, 5-6 years ago, everybody kind of jumped on the cybersecurity bandwagon. All these companies slapped, cybersecurity on their list of services. And the problem is the types of organizations we're working with have a hard time navigating that, right? Because they're not in the business, which is
Right.
why they need organizations like ours to support them. So they have a hard time navigating the marketplace, all the stuff that's out there. You got software companies that are saying, oh yeah, just pay for your subscription and we'll make you all compliant and everything will be perfectly rosy and nice. And,
Yeah.
and then they get into it and they're like, wait, it didn't work like that. And then they reach out, so our biggest thing is, I think, getting the attention of the right types of prospective clients and,
Okay.
helping educate them on the difference between what's out there in the market, because there is no one size fits all solution, but it's important that they know the pros and cons of each, because some of these companies, I mean, it should be flat out, false advertising, what they're telling people. They get into it, and they're $50,000 into a software subscription and realize, oh wait, I just created another job
Yeah.
for myself,
Yeah.
So,
It's not doing what they said they would do. And therefore, now I have to start over, but I've already spent that money.
right.
Tell me about where you see the biggest opportunities in the balance of this year and maybe in the next year. Where do you see those ahead?
Yeah, so a lot of opportunities. Of course, this is probably going to sound like a broken record because I'm sure everybody's talking about it. But in the world of AI, right, in
Right.
our space, AI governance is huge because all these
Okay.
organizations are looking to implement and are implementing agentic AI systems within their environments. They want to do that. They don't want to fall behind. People are deathly afraid of, oh, I'm going to fall behind the AI power curve. And in a lot of cases, rightfully so. There's some truth to that, but I think a lot of hype as well. But regardless, when companies are building these AI systems, the governance and the testing has to occur. We can't, the cybersecurity fundamentals all hold true. Now we just add another layer on it with some of the AI specific considerations. So AI risk assessments, AI governance, AI testing, that's all, core to what we do and what we need to do for our clients anyway. But I think we're going to just see a big continued increase in that. And it may be a little bit of we may have to go through some turmoil before the big wave of those opportunities come, because I think a lot of people are putting these systems in place just focused on speed rather than security. And I think it's going to take some serious incidents for people to say, wait, let's slow down a little bit. Let's do this the right way, not just the fast way. So that's a big one. Um, and, but overall, I think the opportunity to now and indefinitely is always going to be in the people side. We do a lot of cool stuff with agentic AI, from our testing systems and different models that we build and things that don't have the ethical boundaries of, your
Right.
available stuff is, right, because we can't have those for our business. We've got to be able to write malware and stuff and think and act like the cyber criminals. However, above and beyond all that, I think the human element will always be most important. Is to us, people are far more important and more capable than technologies. So the more we can help our clients understand how to get not just how to implement this AI and do it effectively, but how to really leverage it for the betterment of their people, not to replace people, but how to accelerate what is
augment, complement.
Yeah, that I think there's, kind of two lenses on this. One is those organizations saying, oh, well, we can use AI and eliminate all these jobs and all this overhead, and I think that might be fine for, next quarter's P&L, but I think they're going to get steamrolled by the companies that are saying, hey, let's help our people create more and do exponentially more.
Correct.
With bringing their brilliance in and combine it with these tools, and they gain more market share. They create whole new industries out of that. Whereas the short-term, bottom line thinking companies are just going to get obliterated.
It'll come back again. And AI has a lot of also hidden costs that people aren't really cognitively being thinking of every time it gets utilized, and you use the agents and what's going on. And then in the back end, you're getting people that are just doing AI, whether they're a large company, for what's find out what the greatest recipe for dinner tonight is. Great. I didn't need you to use that. I don't need to use those tokens for that. So please don't be doing that. But I think there's a lot of costs that are going to be, I think, will hit people pretty square between the eyes in the next year or two that they hadn't really thought when they thought about the magic of AI. Our 30 minutes is blown by, and Zach, I really enjoyed the conversation. I want to thank you for your service as well, being a part of Special Forces for our country. I think I was very responsible. And what a story to think that because your parents moved to a hot environment, it drove you indoors to get involved in computers. You might have used them for nefarious methods at first, but now you've used them for the right things. And I like this story and how it evolved into your company. So how do people reach out to you, Zach, and learn more about you and contact to you and more about Silent Sector?
Yeah, people can always just email info@silentsector.com or visit our website, silentsector.com. There's a contact form right there in the contact page, and then LinkedIn as well. Just always feel free to look me up, reach out if you have any questions, anything like that. So always happy to help, even if you just need a sounding board for something security or compliance related. Happy to help.
Thank you for your time today, Zach. I think you educated a lot of people what this is all about. I know more now than I did when I started with you this afternoon. So thank you for being on Principal Podcast. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Dennis. You as well.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you've learned valuable lessons and strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.